Welcome to Wake Forest University Muslim Student Association. I'd like to take a minute and introduce everyone that's here. My name is Mustafa Abdullah.
My name is Zahir Rahman.
I'm Fatu Bingra.
And I'm Maria Dil Hobeka.
We would all like to tell you what our story is and how our tradition motivates us to participate in interfaith dialogue. Maria, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. I know for myself, my Lebanese heritage as a Maronite Catholic inspires me to take part in a Muslim student dialogue. My ancestors probably fought against Muslims in some civil war in Lebanon, and I'm kind of aggravated with that becoming the definition of what it means to be a Middle Eastern. It doesn't have to be that way, and my parents taught that to me early on. And in our household, it has always been the case that every religion is respected, studied, and honored. And so I wanted to be just a testimony in and of myself and for my parents to just give an example of a Middle Eastern family that does not think that Christians and Muslims should be fighting all the time.
I think it was also always very important to think about other faiths in the context of your own. I mean, even growing up an American Muslim, I defined my own faith through my understandings of Christianity. Because being in America, I mean, I dealt with Christmas before I dealt with our own religious holidays, and so I saw our religious holidays as the equivalent of Christmas. And growing up like that, I mean, defining my own faith according to others was always wasn't necessarily difficult, but it was something unique about being an American Muslim. Looking back across Islamic history and looking at what it means to be Muslim, I'm reminded of the story when Muslims went to the Abyssinian king, a Christian Abyssinian king, and the Prophet told them to do so because they were receiving persecution within Mecca and Medina, so they fled the Abyssinian king, and the king with open arms welcomed them, and what he said was, the sun has many rays, and they go in different areas, but they all come from the same source. And to think of faiths in that fashion, the idea that they all come from the same source, even though they might manifest themselves in different ways, I think it means a lot. And so even though I might have defined my own faith compared to Christianity or through other ones, really they come from the same source. And so to recognize that, to come to the table together and to kind of talk about that, I think means a lot. And I think that that's important in the context of my own faith as well as that of others.
Well, I was born in Freetown, Sierra Leone, which is a country in the west coast of Africa. And religiously, the makeup of the country is about 60-40 Christian Muslim. And so in my life, interfaith dialogue has always been a part. I have uncles who are Catholic and then aunts who are Muslims. So for our family, we have always respected the other religions and been able to tolerate and live with one another in harmony. Sorry, that's so cliche.
Yeah, just stop it. It's okay. Humans are inherently complex. We have many experiences, we come from many places, and we all make up the greater world. My story as an Arab American Muslim features many different experiences, ones that are inherent to who I've become and how I continue to grow. As naturally as being humans are inherently complex. We come from many places, we have many backgrounds, and we live up to many different religious traditions. And it is equally important to recognize that each of these traditions are valid. For one major reason to recognize this is that in Surah 49 of the Quran, it recognizes that we are the world is made up of many different tribes and civilizations, not because God has punished us, but to sort of be a model of God's beauty, and be a model of sort of the beauty of the human race. That differences aren't sort of inherently evil, or they're not inherent obstacles to the world, but rather it is to come to know differences and to see differences as being beautiful. And so when we look at different religious traditions and different paths that people have walked, it is important to see that these traditions are valid. It is like looking almost at a spider web and looking at each different line of the spider web. The one line itself does not really constitute something that's beautiful, but when you put it all together, it makes up an extraordinary pattern, each line is as important and valid as the next. And this is where interfaith will take us. How has your experience at Wake Forest kind of motivated you to become part of the interfaith dialogue?
Well, actually, I mean, one of my best friends here at Wake is from a part in rural North Carolina that, I mean, he's never actually met a Muslim student before me. He never met a Jewish student really before. He never met a Muslim student before. So he had all these perceptions of Islam and stuff before he met me. And I've gotten to know him really well as my best friend, known him for 2.5 years. And the other day we were talking, and he said to me, before I came to Wake, I thought that a Muslim and a terrorist were the same thing. And that when he came here and we started to get to know each other, he realized that there was a difference between the two. And I mean, not to say that everyone at Wake Forest thinks that way, but it's something about Wake. I mean, we have a lot of students who come from a lot of different backgrounds, and some of those backgrounds aren't from very diverse backgrounds, you know. And so, to kind of combat that, I mean, I think is very important. We don't have to go around proselytizing Islam or trying to convert people or something like that, but rather we just need to be good examples ourselves and kind of encompass everything that Islam teaches us to do, just so other people realize where we come from and what we actually, what kind of people we want to be.
I agree with Zahir in that our Muslim population on campus is so small that the majority of the students on campus are watching to see what is a Muslim. And I think it's important for the Muslim students to be willing to sit down and have interfaith dialogue, to share their thoughts and their beliefs, to help dispel some of the misconceptions that other religions have about Islam.
I know for myself, people assume I am Muslim because I'm from the Middle East, and that's always been interesting to me. Just the assumptions I'll come across, like people will then assume that, you know, I'm anti-Muslim because they find out that I'm Maronite Catholic, and just the assumptions that come along with the labels that I have to put on myself. And so for me, being at Wake Forest and being part of the MSA, or the Muslim Student Association on Wake Forest, has been a kind of a critical kind of way to show that, number one, I think that more kind of marketing, if you will, should happen on campus about what it means to be Muslim and how that is different, you know, from anything else, and also very compatible with everything that goes here on campus. And at the same time, you know, I wanted to make sure that people understood that I am really in support of this happening. So that's why I'm here, you know.
Yeah, I would say that I'm involved, or my motivation for being involved in the Wake Forest community concerning interfaith dialogue and dialogues on pluralism is precisely that the public life and politics often stereotypes and categorizes people due to the nature of the public life. We must do that. And so often when you know, someone commits such a horrendous act as September 11th, the people that are under that sort of umbrella of Islam are typified. And what this does is that it simplifies the human experience. The human experience is no longer as sort of delicate and complex as the spider web that I talked about before. And so I would like to sort of continue to participate in this dialogue, to bring to fruition the complexity and the plethora of ideas and beliefs that are present within the Islamic tradition.
Yeah. Do you remember the Oklahoma City bombings? Like when the media first was trying to figure out who it was that committed the bombings, they immediately said it was probably an Arab terrorist. And it's very interesting because in some ways, I guess, if I were living in the Middle East, distinctions would have been made about me depending on my religion. But because I am here in an odd way, it does almost like, I do feel like defending my Muslim brothers and sisters because, you know, some of us share the same heritage, but we all share the same language when it comes to the language that the Quran itself was written in. And I almost do feel a kind of shock of anger when I see just the media jumping to conclusions about who might be at the, you know, and at the end of the day, it turned out to be a homegrown terrorist, you know? It just comes to show that these assumptions just need to be debunked from time to time. A dialogue needs to happen.
And the question is, I mean, how? What's the best way for us to do that? If we start on campus, I think that's probably the best approach. We approach students who, I mean, have great education. When you go to Wake Forest, you are going to leave with a great education. But I think one thing that is important is this idea of spiritual development and just letting kids know really where we do come from.
Yeah.
And I think we're on the right track with that. And I think you're absolutely right. This idea of outreach and kind of just being good examples of what we do. And I mean, we appreciate the fact that you're involved so much. I mean, that's awesome. You know, to have someone who isn't even Muslim but really cares about what we're doing. I think that's great. And, I mean, it's so great that Inter-Muslim Students Association we're able to reach out and have so many people from different backgrounds come to the table together.